Imagine a city rising from sand dunes where temperatures hit 50 degrees Celsius, or sprouting from permafrost where winter darkness lasts for months. Sounds insane, right? But governments around the world are doing exactly this, pouring billions into megacity projects in places where humans were never meant to live. Today, we're diving into one of the most extreme DC to Philadelphia. Inside this mirrored monolith, residents would theoretically live, work, shop, and recreate without ever needing a car. High-speed rail would connect the entire length in just 20 minutes. The architecture is stunning. Two parallel structures, 500 meters high, creating a corridor of civilization in the middle of nowhere. The exterior would be covered in mirrors, reflecting the desert landscape. Inside, artificial climates, green spaces, and advanced technology would create a self-contained world. On paper, it sounds revolutionary, but the line isn't alone, and it's not even the first time this has been tried. Act 2. The pattern. Around the globe, governments keep attempting this same gambit, building cities where nature says no. Let's start in the frozen north. Russia's Arctic cities. The Soviet Union built entire mining cities in Siberia. Norilsk, one of the coldest cities on Earth, home to 175,000 people. Temperatures drop to minus 50 degrees Celsius. The sun disappears for 2 months each winter. The air is so polluted that mining the topsoil would be profitable because of the heavy metal concentration. It exists because of nickel mines. During the Soviet era, people were assigned to work there. They had no choice. The city was built by Gulag prisoners in the 1930s. When the economic rationale weakened, these cities became traps. Today, Norilsk is one of the most polluted places on the planet. Residents face life expectancies years below the Russian average, and yet people still live there. Why? Because leaving is expensive, and for some, it's all they've ever known. The city has become a monument to what happens when you build somewhere purely for resource extraction, with no thought to long-term livability. Now, let's move to China, China's ghost cities. China built Ordos Kangbashi in Inner Mongolia, a city designed for 1 million people in the middle of the desert. The Chinese government invested billions in massive apartment complexes, government buildings, museums, theaters, all the infrastructure of a major city. But there was one problem: nobody wanted to live there. Today, it sits largely empty. Entire neighborhoods with no residents, shopping centers with no customers. The harsh climate, isolation, and lack of economic opportunity meant people simply didn't come. Real estate developers built it, assuming if you build it, they will come. They didn't. Ordos became the poster child for wasteful development and China's ghost city phenomenon. Estimates suggest China has built enough empty housing to accommodate over 90 million people. Much of it sits in these remote, inhospitable locations that made sense on a map, but not in reality. And it's not just about cold or desert isolation. UAE's Palm Islands. Dubai built artificial islands in the Persian Gulf. The Palm Jumeirah cost $12 billion. It's a feat of engineering, a palm tree-shaped archipelago visible from space. Luxury villas, hotels, and resorts line the fronds of the palm. But building artificial islands in the Persian Gulf means fighting constant erosion, extreme heat reaching 50 degrees Celsius in summer, and ecological damage to marine environments. The sand used to create the islands disrupted local ecosystems. The structures require constant maintenance to prevent the sea from reclaiming them. And here's the thing, these aren't anomalies. History is full of examples. Brazil's Brasilia was built in the interior to move the capital away from the coast. While it succeeded politically, the isolated location created a city that feels artificial and difficult to live in for many residents. Egypt's new administrative capital is being built in the desert, 45 kilometers east of Cairo. Estimated cost, $58 billion. It's meant to house 5 million people, but critics question whether people will want to move to a desert location when Cairo already exists. The question becomes clear, why do governments keep doing this? Act 3. The motivations. There are several forces driving these decisions, and understanding them helps explain why this pattern keeps repeating. Economic diversification. For Saudi Arabia, NEOM represents a desperate attempt to move beyond oil. Saudi Arabia's economy is overwhelmingly dependent on petroleum exports. As the world transitions toward renewable energy, the dependency becomes an existential threat. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has staked his reputation on Saudi Vision 2030, a plan to diversify the economy. NEOM is the flagship project. It's meant to attract foreign investment, create high-tech industries, and position Saudi Arabia as a hub for innovation, rather than just an oil exporter. A futuristic megacity signals modernity and innovation to foreign investors. It says, we're not just an oil state, we're building the future. But there's also another motivation at play. National prestige. Mega projects announce arrival on the world stage. They're about national pride and international status. China's ghost cities weren't meant to be empty. They signaled economic power and modernity. The message was clear. China can build entire cities from nothing. Russia's Arctic cities demonstrated Soviet industrial might. They proved the USSR could conquer any environment, settle any territory. The human cost was secondary to the geopolitical statement. The UAE's Palm Islands put Dubai on the map as a global destination. Before the Palms, Dubai was relatively unknown internationally. Now, it's synonymous with luxury and excess. These projects are political as much as practical. Leaders want legacy projects. They want to be remembered as the visionary who built something impossible. And there's a third factor that can't be ignored: technological optimism. There's a seductive belief that technology can overcome any obstacle. This isn't entirely wrong. Technology has allowed humans to inhabit Antarctica, live on the International Space Station, and build in places previous generations would have considered impossible. With enough money, engineering, and innovation, we can air-condition deserts, desalinate oceans, and transport resources across continents. We can build domed cities, vertical farms, and closed-loop ecosystems. But this optimism consistently ignores one critical factor: cost, both financial and environmental. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should, and more importantly, it doesn't mean it's sustainable. Act 4. The reality check. Let's talk about why these projects consistently fail to live up to their promises. The cost problem. Building in extreme environments multiplies every expense. In normal construction, you can rely on local labor, readily available materials, and established supply chains. In hostile environments, everything costs more. Materials deteriorate faster. Extreme heat causes expansion and contraction that weakens structures. Salt air corrodes metal. Sand infiltrates everything. Cold makes concrete brittle. Labor requires hazard pay and rotation schedules. You can't just hire local workers. You have to import them, house them, and compensate them for working in difficult conditions. In places like Norilsk, workers traditionally received higher pay and better benefits to compensate for the harsh environment. Infrastructure needs redundancy for when, not if, systems fail. In a normal city, if the water system breaks, it's an inconvenience. In a desert city dependent on desalination, it's a catastrophe. Every critical system needs backup systems, and those backups need backups. The line's estimated cost has ballooned. Initial projections of $500 billion are likely conservative. Some analysts suggest the real cost could exceed $1 trillion. For context, that's more than the GDP of Sweden. It's more than the entire annual budget of Saudi Arabia. And that's just construction costs. The real financial drain comes later. The sustainability illusion. These projects claim environmental consciousness while demanding enormous resource inputs. Let's focus on the line specifically. The line would require desalination plants running continuously. Desalination is energy intensive. Even with renewable energy, the scale required is staggering. We're talking about providing water for 9 million people in a desert with 0 natural freshwater sources. The energy cost of pumping water 500 meters upward through a 170-kilometer structure? Astronomical, despite renewable energy claims. Gravity is a relentless opponent. Every liter of water needs to be lifted the height of a 500-meter skyscraper, then distributed horizontally across vast distances. Air conditioning for 9 million people in desert heat? The carbon footprint would be massive. Even with the most efficient systems, you're fighting 50-degree heat. The larger the temperature differential between inside and outside, the more energy required to maintain it. And here's something the promotional materials don't emphasize. Where does the waste go? 9 million people generate enormous amounts of sewage, garbage, and industrial waste. In traditional cities, this is distributed across a large area with natural processes, helping break it down. In the line, it's concentrated in a narrow corridor. But perhaps the biggest oversight is the human element. The human factor. Here's what planners consistently underestimate. People don't want to live in hostile environments unless they have to. When given a choice, humans migrate toward temperate climates, economic opportunity, and social connection. We're not evenly distributed across the planet by accident. We cluster in places where living is easier. The Soviet Arctic cities survived because people were assigned there. It wasn't optional. When the Soviet Union collapsed and people gained freedom of movement, populations in these cities plummeted. Entire neighborhoods were abandoned. Those who could leave did. You can build the most technologically advanced city in the world, but if it's 200 kilometers from anywhere in a desert, people won't choose to live there voluntarily, not when comfortable alternatives exist. The line's planners seem to assume that luxury amenities and cutting-edge technology will be enough. But humans are social creatures. We want access to family, friends, culture, and opportunity. A city in the middle of nowhere struggles to provide these things, no matter how well designed. And even if you convince people to move there initially, keeping them is another challenge. The maintenance crisis. Extreme environments don't just make construction expensive, they make maintenance eternal. Sand infiltration, salt corrosion, thermal expansion and contraction, UV degradation of materials. These aren't one-time problems. They're permanent battles requiring constant resources. In a normal city, infrastructure might last 50 to 100 years with periodic maintenance. In extreme environments, that timeline shrinks dramatically. The harsh conditions accelerate wear and tear on everything. When economic downturns come, and they always come, these cities can't reduce maintenance budgets without accelerating decay. It's a trap. You're locked into high perpetual costs just to keep the city functional. We've seen this play out in Dubai. The Palm Islands require constant sand replenishment. The islands are literally washing away and need to be rebuilt continuously. It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you finish, you have to start over. This creates a dependency that's hard to escape. The city becomes a money pit that can never be abandoned because too much has been invested, but also can never truly succeed because the costs never stop escalating. Act 5. Why they keep trying. So, if the track record is this poor, why do governments keep attempting it? Sunk cost politics. Once announced, backing down from a mega project is political suicide. It admits failure. Political leaders have staked their reputations on these visions. Canceling them means admitting they were wrong, wasted taxpayer money, and misjudged the feasibility. Better to push forward and hope for the best. Maybe technology will improve. Maybe the economics will shift. Maybe some unforeseen benefit will emerge. At the very least, something gets built, and that's better than nothing, right? This is particularly true in authoritarian systems where leaders can't easily be held accountable. In democracies, voters might punish wasteful spending. In autocracies, the calculus is different. Short-term thinking. Political leaders work in election cycles. Groundbreaking ceremonies make headlines. Ribbon-cutting events are photo opportunities. The problems emerge decades later on someone else's watch. The political incentives are completely misaligned with long-term success. A leader gets credit for announcing and starting a mega project. They get to claim they're doing something bold and visionary. The consequences, the cost overruns, the maintenance issues, the failure to attract residents, those happen years or decades later. By then, that leader has moved on. Maybe they're retired, maybe they've been promoted, maybe they've been deposed. Either way, it's no longer their problem. The allure of blank slates. There's something intoxicating about starting fresh, unconstrained by existing infrastructure, property rights, or communities. Planners can imagine perfect cities. Urban planning in existing cities is messy. You have to work around buildings people own, streets that can't be moved, utilities that are already in place. You have to negotiate with property owners, businesses, and residents who all have their own interests. In a blank slate, you can design the optimal city. Everything exactly where it should be. Every system perfectly integrated. It's the urban planner's ultimate fantasy. But perfect cities designed for imaginary humans rarely work for real ones. Real cities are organic. They evolve over time in response to how people actually use them. The best neighborhoods weren't perfectly planned. They grew naturally based on real needs and behaviors. Economic stimulus. Even if the city ultimately fails, construction creates jobs and GDP growth in the short term. For governments seeking legitimacy, that matters. Think about it from the perspective of a leader trying to maintain power. Starting a mega project puts people to work. It creates construction jobs, engineering positions, and service roles. Money flows through the economy. This is especially attractive in countries with high unemployment or economic stagnation. A mega project can absorb large numbers of workers and create the appearance of economic dynamism. The fact that it might not be sustainable long-term is a problem for future leaders to solve. Conclusion. The line may never be completed. Recent reports suggest Saudi Arabia has already scaled back its ambitions. Instead of 1.5 million residents by 2030, they're now targeting just 300,000. The full 9 million person vision has been pushed to 2045, if it happens at all. If it is completed, it might never reach its population targets. That wouldn't make it unique. It would make it typical. History is littered with ambitious cities built where nature resists. Some survive through sheer economic necessity. Norilsk still exists because the nickel mines remain profitable enough to justify the human cost. Dubai's Palm Islands attract enough wealthy tourists to fund their constant maintenance. Most become cautionary tales. Ordos stands as a monument to hubris. Half-built projects in the Egyptian desert may never be completed. Brazil's Brasilia works as a capital, but struggles as a city people actually want to live in. The question isn't whether we can build cities in impossible places. With enough money, we can build almost anything. Humanity has proven that repeatedly. We've built cities in deserts, on permafrost, on artificial islands, and in every other hostile environment imaginable. The question is whether we should. Because ambition without realism doesn't create utopias. It creates expensive monuments to hubris. It wastes resources that could be used to improve existing cities where people actually want to live. It prioritizes spectacle over substance, vision over practicality. The most sustainable cities aren't the ones built in extreme environments with cutting-edge technology. They're the ones built where humans naturally thrive, designed around how people actually live, not how planners think they should live. If you found this investigation valuable, subscribe to Next Build for more deep dives into the mega projects reshaping our world, the successes, the failures, and everything in between. What do you think? Could the line actually work, or is it destined to become the next Ordos? Let me know in the comments.